Hello, everyone. My name is Ole Kagan, and I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator with LA County Library, and I welcome you to Work Ready, online job training resources. Before we get going with today's event, I'd like to take care of some housekeeping and tell you a little bit about the Work Ready program. And now I'd like to tell you about the Work Ready program. Work Ready started in December of 2020 with the purpose of helping people get a job, improve their work situation, and plan a more sustainable career path. We do that in two ways. Number one, we lend out laptops and Wi-Fi hotspots for 6-week loans out of 27 library locations, breaking down one barrier to applying for a job and getting online training, the subject of our presentation today. And number two is we provide virtual events just like this one on a range of work-related topics, from basics like cover letters, interviews, resumes, to deep dives into various careers and other subjects that help you succeed at work. And you can see over 50 of these past classes at any time by checking out the work and career playlist on our YouTube channel, which I'm going to post in the chat right now. And this program is also going to end up in that work and career playlist. So if you miss it today, if you need to leave early, if you want to rewatch the program, you will get a follow-up email with a link to the video of this presentation, as well as a PDF of these slides. And the Work Ready program is made possible due to funds provided by the American Rescue Plan. If you'd like to learn more about in-person or virtual programs presented by LA County Library and other presenters, you can head over to lacountylibrary.org. It's our website, and click the events link on the upper right-hand side. If you click on that, then you get to see all the programs, virtual and in-person, for all ages, kids, teens, adults, older adults, and at 85 library locations. And if you're just interested in the virtual events, like this one, then you can hover over that events tab or the events button, and you'll get a virtual programming drop-down. Click on that, and then you get to see just the Zoom events, also for all ages. And of course, all of these programs are absolutely free. So go to lacountylibrary.org, sign up for other programs, visit our libraries. We welcome you. All right, I'm going to repeat one more time. This program is being recorded. You will get this presentation and the slides. So don't worry if you miss anything. We will be able to review. And of course, you can always email me in response to that follow-up email if you have other questions that you weren't able to get in today. So let me bring up my presentation and we'll get going. I should say, usually at this point, I would introduce our presenter. We had an outside presenter or one of our library folks, but today the presenter is me. So I'm going to bring up my presentation and get started with online resources or online job training resources. So here is this. All right. So welcome to Online Job Training Resources. Once again, my name is Ole Kagan. I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator for LA County Library. If you've been to our Work Ready events, you've probably seen me before. And that is because I host our Work Ready events. As it happens, I'm also a big proponent of lifelong learning, and I've helped others with lifelong learning, both as a reference librarian and as a trainer. So before we get going, we really get down the path like a roller coaster going down into our presentation. I'm kind of curious, where is everyone located? I know that we've had people from all over LA County in these programs, and we've had people from all over the world in our Work Ready events. So I'm curious. Of course, the chat is private, so you'll only be able to see what I post in the chat, but not what anybody else posts. So don't worry about, don't worry. Oh, somebody put Claremont. Don't worry about, your privacy being violated here, because nobody else will be able to see where you're posting. So I've got a person in Claremont Los Angeles, Marina del Rey, San Pedro, Torrance. We got a few people from South Bay here. Palmdale, hello, Antelope Valley, Westlake Village. And as we got people from all over, San Dimas, WeHo, or West Hollywood, but in Illinois. Very nice. That's so far the furthest. Burbank, Compton, Whittier, Bellflower, Lancaster, another of my people from the Antelope Valley. My first library assignment was in Lancaster, so I have a special place in my heart for the Antelope Valley. El Segundo, Whittier, more Compton, Walnut, West Covina. I love this. Big Bear, that's the second furthest after Illinois. Norwalk, Whittier, Rancho Cucamonga, North Hollywood. Somebody mentioned if I can increase the volume. I unfortunately can't. I can try to see if I can bump my microphone a little bit, but let me try something here. Actually, it looks like my microphone is actually at the highest level that I can get. So I'm hitting about half of it. So I can maybe get a little bit closer to the microphone. All right. And we've got people from all over the place. I love it. It's so nice that there are people from everywhere tuning in, close and far away as well. Somebody mentioned in the Q&A, how do you get a job at the library here? Well, it depends on the job, but if you want to become a page, if you want to shelve books, then you can always go to the library and ask for an application. If they have openings, they'll be happy to take it. Somebody else put Walnut. Thank you all for answering. I have one other question before we get going. Who's at work right now? I know that some people check in from work, some people check in from home, some people, I know that somebody has been listening. I know somebody mentioned at some point that they were listening on the bus. They were on the bus listening to our program before. So I'm curious, I see some people are tuning in from work. Anybody tuning in from home? And some people tuning in from home. One person says unemployed after 24 years. I'm sorry. Hopefully the skills you learn about learning skills in this program will help you get back to work. Some folks are looking for work. Somebody's working from home. Tuning in from home, going to work later today. It's an evening shift today. All right. Well, wherever you are, I'm glad that you're here. So thank you for tuning in. Let's get into our purpose, the purpose of today's event, and that is to encourage career success by providing practical ways to think about learning, planning, your skill building, and resources to get you started. So there's three aspects of our purpose. Number one is practical ways to think about learning. So how do we, when we want to say, I need this skill for this job, how do we think about that? How do we think about skills in general and what all of those different aspects that we see in a job description? And I'll be breaking that down for you a little bit later. Next is planning your skills building. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some questions for self-assessment and then some questions about the actual skills that you're trying to learn. And that will help you choose the resources that I'm going to show you as well. And that brings us to a third part of today's purpose, and that is the resources. Now, I feel like the resources is actually the smallest part of today's presentation because there are so many resources, and a lot depends on the skill you're trying to learn. But I will give you a bunch of resources that you can take and start learning right away after this presentation. Now, the next part of our presentation here is, what learning is. Learning is not easy. And this is almost a disclaimer for the presentation. Anyone who tells you that learning is easy has never become advanced at a topic or is just extremely talented. But learning can be fun. The basis of gaining understanding and competence is work. Your mind, sometimes your body, have to put an effort over a given period of time to get the results you want. It's true that anyone can learn and become a master at anything, but with the caveat that they need to put in the required time and effort. So for instance, Joe wants to learn to play classical guitar and enter world-class competitions. He can do it with the understanding that it may take him years of daily practice, many hours a day. Is it realistic if he has a tin ear, kind of like me? If he has a demanding full-time job, if he has a family? Maybe not. But it's all up to Joe, how much time he puts in and maybe how much sleep he needs. It's the same with work skills. But the fact is, with work skills, most of us can learn most of the work skills that we need for the careers that we want. And that's what this presentation is about. So what is our plan for today? We're in the introduction right now, and then we're going to get on to our learning journey. And as I mentioned before, I'm going to be breaking down how to look at job descriptions to identify the kind of skills that you might need. We're going to do a little self-assessment so you can think about how what you want to learn, how you learn best. We're going to analyze the actual thing that you want to learn, and then we're going to talk about methods and resources, which is, online learning resources. I'm going to end with some practical tips, and we're going to have plenty of time for Q&A. And this presentation, I'm going to do it a little differently than I do with the usual presentation. Sometimes I've done similar presentations in the past, I usually save all the demos for the end, because usually people say, hey, can you show us these resources? For this presentation, I'm trying something a little different. I'm going to be giving you demos of the different resources in between the different parts of the presentation. So we'll try that out. And if it's terrible, if it interrupts the presentation flow too much, then I'll just save them until the end. So you can let me know in the chat after one or two of the demos to see if it works for you. I can pretty much adjust the presentation. It's our presentation. We can adjust it however we see fit, however it's most useful for you. So next, I'm going to introduce myself. But this is not really about me. This is mostly a lead up to considering looking at job descriptions. So, hi, I'm Oleg. I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator for LA County Library. But this hasn't always been my job. I've had a variety of different jobs. I've been a librarian, a web designer, an archivist. I've been a computer teacher, something that I'm still doing. I've been a writer. I've tended bar. I've been a public speaker. I've been all sorts of different things, including a sandwich artist at Subway, which was an enjoyable job. And these different jobs have given me different skills and required different degrees and different personal dispositions, so how I am. So these are the kind of skills, degrees, and dispositions that I've had to do those different jobs. So each of us has different skills, different degrees or certifications, and different dispositions. And when we think about learning skills online or off, we take in what we have and then consider what we need to gain. Next, I'm going to give you a little demo of one of our resources, and that is LinkedIn Learning. LinkedIn Learning allows you to get quite a few skills that you may need, totally free and available with your library card. So I'm going to stop sharing my presentation, and I'm going to share my browser window and show you LinkedIn Learning. LinkedIn Learning is one of my favorite resources that we have. I've used it myself to learn quite a few things. And I find it to be very useful, particularly when you want to learn technology, software, computer programming. But there's also a lot of soft skills on LinkedIn Learning, as I'll show you. So you should now be seeing the browser window. So I have the Brave browser up here, and I have the library website, lacountylibrary.org, a website probably that many of you have been to. How do you get to LinkedIn Learning? Well, you start by going to the digital library, which is right up here in the middle. And there's actually a link directly to LinkedIn Learning. You can click right there. Or what I want to do is take a a slightly roundabout route to show you our learning page. And so a lot of the resources that I'm going to be talking about at the end of this presentation are actually available here through the library. So you go digital library and online learning, and you get this page here for personal and professional development. So LinkedIn Learning is the very first one, but there's also quite a few other ones. And these are all free with your library card. And frankly, a lot of them are really, really good. So let's get into LinkedIn Learning. I'm going to click this link right here. You can also click the icon, and it gives you a little landing page. Click Get Started. Once you're here, you enter your library card number. I have mine memorized. Your password. And you click Continue. I pressed Enter. And it's going to take us to LinkedIn Learning. Let me know in the chat if I'm going too fast, if I'm going at the right pace, and if you're able to see what you want to see with this demo. So this is the intro page to LinkedIn Learning. As you can see at the very top, there's a little slider here with a variety of different classes that LinkedIn Learning is currently highlighting. And as we scroll down, there are also top picks for you. So depending on what you learned before or what you've identified in the My Learning tab, which was on the left side here, LinkedIn Learning will give you suggestions for classes that you might want to take. So because I've taken classes in Excel, because I've taken classes in Python, it's giving me classes on computer programming and other business software. But there's also soft skills like organizing, building a second brain, organizing your digital life, business analysis foundations, because I've watched some short videos on business analysis, marketing foundations. So I'm going to go into one of these classes so that you can see what the class actually looks like. So let's say, oh, this is interesting, become a teacher. So it's like a career track. So let's say I want to do a data science foundations fundamentals. So I'm going to click on that. And the first thing that you get when I click on that is you get a video telling you about the class. So if you're not sure you want to take the class, or if you're not sure you're going to like the teacher, etc., you can actually just click on the class, and the getting started video is always like 1 or 2 minutes long, and it'll give you an introduction to what the class is. So let me see if my sharing, I'm going to see if my sharing will actually let you hear the sound here. Well, actually, we can have the captions. Let's turn the captions on. So this is the video. So this one is a little fancier than some of the other ones. Here's the teacher. Actually, I don't hear any, so I don't think he's actually saying. I think this one is unusual. This one doesn't actually tell you a whole lot about the class. It's just a lot of fancy graphics. So let's instead, we can scroll down and get the course details. So this is the professor. You can click on him and you get more information about who Barton Paulson is. And then here is the description of the class. Data science is driving a worldwide revolution that touches everything from business automation to social interaction, etc., etc. You can see learning objectives. And over on the left side here, you can see the different videos that are part of the class. And you don't have to watch any particular one. You don't have to watch them in order if you don't want to. You can watch them in order. And if it's a class, if you were trying to interested, some folks said it's on mute on the video panel. Ah, good point. The video was on mute. Well, in any case, we can watch any of, you can watch any, you can jump into any video here. So for instance, what I've done is I already know quite a bit about Excel. So when I've taken Excel classes, I've just gone into essential Excel training with LinkedIn. And I have just clicked on the things that I was interested in. So if we can watch a video on predictive analytics, if we're just interested in learning what that is, then we can just click on that and get that video. LinkedIn Learning also has exercise files. So many classes have different exercises that you can do on your own, and you can get a certificate after the class is over. And all this is free with your library card. Without your library card, LinkedIn Learning is something like $280 a year. So it's a great value. But besides being a great value, it's just a great learning resource. So that is LinkedIn Learning. And let's get back to our presentation. If we want to mess around on LinkedIn Learning some more, you can go there yourself, again, through our library website, digital library, and then LinkedIn Learning. Or if you have questions about LinkedIn Learning, put them in the Q&A and I'll cover them at the end. We had a question here. Are the classes available in Spanish or other languages? So on some of the resources, yes. On LinkedIn Learning, I'm not sure. I actually have not seen classes in Spanish. Let's look, because I'm curious about that as well. There might be classes in Spanish. And then we'll get back to our presentation. Okay. And we're in. I'm just going to type in Spanish and see what comes up. Learn Spanish. So this is essential Spanish. You can learn. I didn't even know that. I didn't know you can learn. I think, oh yeah, so here's classes in Spanish. So there are actually classes in Spanish. This is classes in Spanish about Spanish. But if we do, let's say, Excel. Yeah, there are classes in Spanish. I wonder if there are classes in Russian. I speak Russian, so. Oh, no, it doesn't look like it. It looks like there's just these languages here. Indeed, there are classes in Japanese on Excel. That's really interesting. Thanks for asking that question, because now I learned something new. All right, let's get back to our presentation. And share screen. Let me see if it shares the right screen here. Okay, so this is, okay, so I'm gonna have to use some, I see. I'm gonna have to share my Excel window one more time, because it doesn't toggle as easily as I thought it would. But no problem. Here we are. So back to our LinkedIn demo. And now we finished with the LinkedIn Learning demo. And now let's get to reading a job description. I'm going to go through this part relatively fast, but I feel like it's important when considering the skills that you're trying to learn, and then consequently the resources that you're trying to get for learning those skills. So a job description can be broken down into 5 general elements. These elements interact with each other sometimes and aren't necessarily discrete. The elements are knowledge, which is a conceptual understanding of an area, degrees or certifications, your disposition, who you are, what your internal qualities are, personal characteristics, the experience that you have, and specific tangible skills. So if I use library work as an example, so the knowledge that I have about libraries, so I know how libraries work. We all know how libraries work. That's general knowledge. It's not necessarily applicable. It's not a skill, but it's a understanding of a concept. I have a Master's of Library and Information Science. That's a degree or certification. You need a Master's of Library and Information Science in order to work as a librarian. A library worker should be friendly, at least if you're working with the public. That's a disposition. That's something that's inside. Somebody is friendly, and consequently, they provide good customer service. Excuse me, I've worked with LA County Library for 13 years. That's my level of experience. And before that, I worked with the City of Los Angeles and a few other libraries and in other jobs. That's the experience that I have. And then I am good at Microsoft Excel and public speaking. These are skills that I have. And so every job description can be broken down into these 5 elements. And I have a few examples of that as well. A few people have asked in the chat in the Q&A, how can you find out what your library card number and your PIN is? And I'll cover that at the end. Those are good questions, relevant and important for accessing the resources that the library offers. So let's look at a job description. So this job description is really small. Don't worry about reading it. It's an actual job description I pulled and kind of put it into this format. The more important things is how some of the lines in the job description break out into the 5 elements of a job description. So we've got, for instance, they're looking for a disposition, able to effectively multitask in a fast-paced environment. They're looking for a certain type of experience, proven experience as an administrative assistant or office admin assistant. So you have to have a certain amount of years, X number of years doing this job. You need certain skills. This is what we're talking about here when it comes to learning resources, because you can't get experience without actually doing the job. You can't necessarily, you can change your disposition. I mean, you can fake it till you make it. You can, if you're able to, if you don't like multitasking, working in a fast-paced environment, you can still do it. But that's not necessarily your internal disposition. Skills, on the other hand, you can gain. Those are things that if you don't have them, you can have them. So proficiency in Microsoft Office, Excel, or Word, those are all things you can learn. Some of them through LinkedIn Learning, actually all of them through LinkedIn Learning. Excellent oral and written communication skills. To a certain extent, some of those things are part of a disposition, whether you like to do public speaking, whether you're a very talkative person. But in order to communicate better, that's a skill that you can learn. You can learn communication skills and techniques in order to convey your messages, whether it's written or orally. Knowledge, so assist management in understanding, communicating, and resolving employee relations issues. So that's not necessarily a skill, that's knowledge, that's conceptual. So when you see a situation, you need to evaluate a situation, either conflict between employees or conflict between the company and employees. How you do that is based on the ideas of communication, the ideas of, human resources management. And then bilingual, of course, that's a skill. If you know Spanish, then that's something tangible that you have, and a person can learn Spanish. Here's another one. This one is a more technical job, a data analyst for a company. So, like a skill, experience in SQL, which is a database programming language, R or Python. R is a statistical language for working with statistics, and Python is a multi-purpose programming language. You see disposition, patience, and meticulousness necessary for precise data analysis and data exploration. Not everybody is so detail-oriented or interested in, picking nits when it comes to data. That's a disposition somebody has. A disposition somebody has is passion for movies, TV, and advertising. Somebody can know about movies and TV and advertising. That's knowledge. But having a passion for it, that's a disposition. So as you can tell, every job description you're going to look at will invariably have these 5 elements. And so when you consider whether this job is for you, you will look at these elements and think, well, I can gain this knowledge, I can get this degree, I have this disposition, or I can have this disposition while I'm at work. I have this experience, or I can gain this experience, and I can gain certain skills. By breaking down job descriptions, you can see what's realistic for you at this moment, or when you're planning ahead. Next, I want to demo another resource for you, and that is Sailor.org, which is a website that has various classes. So let's get into that. How's everybody doing so far? Are you following the presentation? Am I going at the right pace? Let me know in the chat. All right, so far so good. Thank you for your feedback. Always welcome. So we now are at saylor.org. That's SAYLOR.org. Saylor is a name of a person. And if you want to learn more about him, you can. But this website is independent of who that person is. This is a really neat website for learning new skills, finishing your degree, or partnering with Saylor Academy. In this situation, we're not worried about degree, we're not worried about partnering, we're worried about learning new skills. That's what we're all here for today. And so what I'm gonna do is just simply click on learn new skills. And so on this website, you have full access for free without having to log in or sign up or anything. But you can create an account, it's free, log in and sign up if you wanted to track where you are in the classes. And I think in order to get a certificate, you would need to create a login. So this is all the features of having a certificate, etc. That's up to you. And that's what you need. Some people, they just want to gain the skill and have it and don't need any kind of certificate show. And some people would prefer to have a certificate to show that they've finished this class. That's kind of nice to have a certificate. So here's the course catalog. And as you can see, there's a fair amount of different options on this website. Even learning skills. So I open this learning at Saylor Academy. This tells you how to use this website. Most people will not do learning skills and they'll jump right into what they need. So if we go to, for instance, business administration, and let's do principles of marketing. So this is the class. So again, if you want to track your progress in next final exams and get a certificate, you can create an account. Here's the overlay kind of information about the class. It's going to take about 31 hours, plus or minus, depending on whether you read very fast or you take in information very fast, or if you read a little bit slower, it varies, and it doesn't, the average is 31, but when you know yourself, so you'll know if you need more time. And here you get the course syllabus. You can download, you can look at that. This is exactly what each section covers. Learning objectives. This is how you determine whether this is for you. And then for here is if you want to get a certificate, you need a certain kind of score. But let me show you what the actual sections look like. And these are slightly different. I mean, the format is similar for each of the classes, but the actual resources are different. Some of them have videos, some of them are mostly text. Some of them, I suspect, also have audio and pictures. So let's look at the definition and principles of marketing. So if we click through that, this is mostly text so far. So you read the different sections. These are broken down into smaller chunks. So this one has images. This one has mostly text. Some of them have lectures. I know I was looking at one yesterday and it had a TED Talk to start. I think it was data fundamentals or something, and it had a TED Talk included in the class. So one thing that I think is important about learning resources, and I mentioned this a moment ago, is access to final exams. Having tests, having ways to test your knowledge, like when LinkedIn Learning had the exercise files, like final exams for Saylor.org, and any kind of assessment mechanisms are really important when it comes to learning. Most people are afraid of exams or little quizzes, give people nervous energy. But the fact is that that's how you know you've learned something. And taking a test, it helps you learn, because when you're talking about free learning resources, it doesn't matter if you fail the test. It doesn't matter if you get 50%. What that 50% tells you is that you have 50% more knowledge to know. It tells you what parts of the material you're not comfortable with. And then you go back to study, you take the test again. This is your own learning. And so it's not a matter of failure. It's a matter of opportunity to gain immediate feedback. And I'll mention this a little bit more later. All right, so this is Saylor.org. And again, there's quite a few classes that are available from Saylor.org, and it's worthwhile to explore what's available, and depending on the skill that you need. So English as a second language, advanced English as a second language, business proficient English. So let's go back to our presentation here. Here we are. Yeah, this was the class that I was looking at before. Beauty of data is communicating with data. And the beauty, there's beauty, and there's this video where a gentleman shows neat infographics. All right, let's move forward with talking about, well, talking about yourself. So there's various questions that you can ask yourself in doing a self-assessment to know how you learn best and which resources will be best for you. So the first is style. How do I learn best? So what can you break that down as? People talk about learning styles, and that at some point has sort of been discredited to a certain extent. So when it comes to learning styles, am I a visual learner? Am I an auditory learner? Am I a tactile learner? The fact is that regardless of how you feel comfortable, there are certain topics that you can't learn by touching. There are certain topics you can't learn just by listening. You actually have to do things. And so the better question is, how would I or you learn this material best? So if you're talking about computer programming, using an audiobook probably isn't the best way, but maybe you can speak out, when you're coding or when you're learning resources, maybe you can speak out what you're learning, or maybe you can look at the flashcards and you can vocalize the information on the flashcards. Maybe use two flashcards. There's various ways. Maybe you explain it to somebody else, and that will help it, whatever the information lodge into your head. So it's something to think about. How would you learn this material best? Next is access. So all of the resources I'm telling you about today are free, but there's a lot more out there that is low cost or high cost. And that really depends on what you need, how fast you need something to learn something, the level of the material. So there's a whole bunch of basic material, like beginner, intermediate material for free online. Once you start getting into advanced knowledge, that stuff is often, it costs money. It's like if you want to get a PhD from university, you can't really do that with just basic online resources because you'll need to read certain books, you need to access certain materials that don't necessarily exist easily for free. But a lot of things are available for free online. And so you will be able to get advanced knowledge of, say, Microsoft Excel or Word with LinkedIn Learning and other resources. Brain cycles. This one is really important, especially for people who have a lot of life responsibilities. So I'm a parent of two little kids. That affects how many brain cycles I have. My 2-year-old woke up in the middle of the night and wouldn't go to sleep last night. So it happens on a very regular basis. Or if you're taking care of a sick relative, or you're working 2 jobs, you only have a certain amount of brain space and brain cycles to put into learning. And so that will affect your own skills development. And it's not something that is something necessarily bad or good. It's just, we're honest with ourselves and how fast we can learn something if we only have, 20 minutes a day or 20 minutes of, fresh brain time. And then how much of the skill do you know already? So are you starting from zero? Do you know something already? Are you strong in a certain part of this skill, but not in another part? That affects how fast it's going to take you to learn it and how you approach picking a resource and adapting that resource. And finally, kind of an intangible topic, and that's fear. Am I afraid to learn this? Am I afraid to take the test to realize that I may not know the topic as well as I thought I did? Fear is okay. We're all afraid of certain things. If you're learning a language, so many people are afraid of speaking that language to somebody, to a native speaker, because, there's a certain amount of embarrassment. There's a certain amount of risk involved. But there's always risk in learning. And so don't let the fear limit you, but let it teach you. Where do you need to push more? What do you need to study more? Fear is a good motivator. Then once you've assess yourself. And again, you'll be able to look at those. You'll be able to look at all of this later when you look at that. You don't have to remember all of these or write them down now. You'll get the slides later, and you'll be able to ask yourself these questions and consider them when it comes to the skills you want to learn. Next, you want to assess the actual thing that you want to learn, not necessarily yourself. And the way you can do that is you look, are there objective assessment measures for this skill? So if you're trying to learn how to drive, obviously the driving part is, when you take a driving exam, you have to pass the driving. The assessment is all those little check marks that the examiner will be looking for when you're driving. When if you're doing computer programming, there are tests online to demonstrate your skills. Or if you want to, set yourself a goal of creating a certain type of program, that's objective assessment measures. Does the program work? Then, you've created it. Can you make it better? You can certain amount of lines of code. It's important to have assessment because that's going to tell you that you've learned something, but also when you're planning your learning, to already know the assessment first is helpful because you know what you're learning towards. Next is a level. How competent can you get at something? I mentioned earlier that, getting a PhD in a topic can cost a lot of money. It takes a lot of time. Not everybody needs to have PhD level knowledge of most things. For instance, if, there's that administrative assistant job, a posting that I had earlier, for that job, you don't need to be a guru at Microsoft Excel. You can probably have intermediate knowledge and get by because so much of Excel is, what you do on a daily basis. And most of that isn't, wild and crazy, pivot tables that transition into graphs that then, use a heat map. That's not what most people do in Excel. And so you may not need to know that much about it. Finally, there's the idea of time. I keep talking about, when you're doing your self-assessment, when you're assessing a topic, how quickly do you need to learn something? Are you applying for a job where you're going to need to know something that, or at least refresh your knowledge about something, in a week? Well, that's going to be different than if you have, 6 months or indefinitely to learn that topic. That urgency or lack of urgency will help you decide which resources to use and how much money and time to put into learning that topic. And so once we've considered these things, then we can look at the different methods that there are to learn that topic and choose the best one that works. But before we get into some of those methods and some of those resources, let's talk about the Open Textbook Library in our final demo for today. Unless you want me to demo some more of the resources that I'll show you later, I'm happy to go into some of those as well. All right, so I'm going to exit this presentation one more time, and then we'll get into the Open Textbook Library. Also, I keep saying this is a really neat resource. LinkedIn Learning is really neat. Sailor.org is really neat. Open Textbook Library is also really neat. And repeating myself in saying that, but I really feel this way because it's so nice to be able to learn all of these different things for free. I feel like people talk negatively about the internet and social media and everything, but in addition to that, we also have just at our fingertips the Open Textbook Library, where there are thousands, actually 1,353 open textbooks available to us, at a click. So this is the Open Textbook Library. Again, you'll get this web address, so you'll be able to explore it on your own as well. The Open Textbook Library is essentially a discovery layer that guides you to a whole bunch of other websites that have textbooks, free and open textbooks created by professors. Many of them are, I'd say all of the ones that I've seen are, published within the last 10 years, so up to date, so credible, up to date, and widely encompassing. So all good things. Let's look at some textbooks. So we can browse subjects. This will give us some drop down. So if we move our mouse over these, the topics will drop down. So if you hover over, it'll say things at 121 business textbooks. Let's look at mathematics. I'm a little afraid of mathematics, although I appreciate math. So if I wanted to learn calculus, I'm going to click on that, and we've got, so this one published in 1994, but this is a 2008 edition. I don't know if calculus has changed a lot since 1994 or 2008, but here's calculus in context. Let's go a little bit lower. Here are some words I don't understand. Optimal, integral, likely optimization, integral calculus, and probability for students of commerce and social sciences. Okay. Elementary calculus. Let's look at this one. So we can see published in 2020. The contributor is Michael Coral, who's a self-published textbook. He released it free under a GNU free documentation license. Gives you a little description. And if we click through, read more, we get more information about the textbook, including the table of contents, extra materials, and the different ways that we can actually get this book. So LaTeX is a format. It's a type of text encoding format. A PDF is probably the easiest way to get it. So let me click on the PDF and see what. So it takes you to his website where he has the latest edition of Elementary Calculus as a PDF. You can also buy the book for $12.99, but we're here. We can get it for free by clicking this. Let's look. So that's what I mean by discovery layer. This website, Open Textbook Library, takes you to other websites that have textbooks that lets you discover where they are. And through these formats available, that's where they are. So this one will take you to lulu.com where he has this free, where he has a textbook for $12.99. Multivariate calculus. I like how it's a multi is a rainbow here. So I'm scrolling through. This is a piece of software, New Octave. Let me look at some other, sorry, I'm fast scrolling. Some people get a little bit ill when they see fast scrolls. So I'm going to try to scroll a little slower. Humanities. Languages. Well, let's go to literature, rhetoric, and poetry. Not such useful skills necessarily for jobs, but creative writing is very useful for copywriters. Thinking rhetorically, writing for professional public audiences. So if you want to gain some of those written communication skills, this is the kind of book that you would look at. So if we're going to go to this, and then we can see a table of contents, and we can view this book online. We can download an ebook version of it to read on your Kindle or other ebook readers. Get it in XML format, which very few people will use, or a PDF. I'm going to look and see what's online. So it's going to take us to the website of this publisher, Roger Williams University, and we can download the book. This will probably give us the PDF. Yeah. So this EPUB, Mobi is for the Kindles, various types of press book and everything, or we can just read book. And here we are in the textbook. For the contents. So this is just a textbook that's available for free for you online, with the benefit of various links. This one is not, I would probably download the PDF of this one, because this one, the reading process here is not as convenient as some of the other websites. So the downside of the Open Textbook Library is that it'll take you to different places to read the books. And so some of them are really nice for reading, and some of them, like this one, aren't that convenient because you keep having to click. So you have to click to go to each section. Situation, exigence, and kairos. I might actually look at this book later. This book is strictly text. You've got the works cited. There's citations. Anyhow, so this is what the Open Textbook Library looks like, essentially. There's a lot of books available on a variety of topics, and all freely accessible with the click of a button. Oh, something went wrong. Let's try again. It looks like the website might be down. Well, anyhow, we can always get back to this later. Let's get back to our presentation. We're starting to get to the latter part of our presentation. And I'm happy about that because that gets us closer to the Q&A. So if you have questions, feel free to place them in the Q&A now or later. I'll be here. So we're done with our demo for Open Textbook Library. And now let's get into some more resources. I got to say, this is what many people of this presentation came for. And here it is. This is, how many do we have here? I don't know. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So this is 11 resources. This is a tiny, tiny percentage of the resources that are available for free online. If you would like more resources, you can always give me a topic and I will just do a reference interview for you right now and kind of identify potential ways for you to learn the skill that you need. Hopefully I can. If I can't, then I'll email you. We can email about it later. So the way that I've done this slide is I've broken down the different kinds of methods, and I've given you an example of the method. So I talked earlier about doing the self-assessment, about doing the subject assessment or the topic assessment, and now here are the methods that you can use for learning those topics, depending on how much time you have, the skill level that you already have, whether you're able to spend any money on learning the topic, or your urgency and your brain cycles especially. So there are on-demand lessons. So on-demand lessons are where you can get chunks of information, discrete chunks of whatever topic without learning the whole thing. So examples of that would be, for instance, LinkedIn Learning, how I showed you where you can go into the table of contents, just click on anything. Same thing with the Open Textbook Library. You can go to any textbook and you click any chapter and you can use that. So those are all on demand for you, available at any time. You don't have to wait. It's not like a class where you have to wait to go to the next class. We've got, YouTube is, as many people say, it's like the kind of the people's university. People say that about the library. People say that about YouTube. I use YouTube to learn all the time, stuff about plumbing and other home repair. Now, the thing about YouTube that you have to remember is that contrary to something like LinkedIn Learning, Khan Academy, or even Mango Languages, or many of these other resources, the credibility of the person that you're seeing on YouTube is not always clear. So anybody can post a video about anything. I can post a video about, I don't know, repairing drywall. I've done it like twice in my life. Would you trust me to tell you about how to repair drywall? Maybe not, but yet I can make a really neat and crystal clear video if I have good videography about repairing drywall with all sorts of not very effective information. So you have to be aware when you're looking at YouTube that whether the person that you're watching is actually a good person to learn about that topic from. Likewise, the currency of YouTube videos isn't always clear. So when you look at LinkedIn Learning videos about Microsoft Excel or a certain type of programming language, it'll be clear about when it was released, whether it's still active. They'll usually remove videos for software that's no longer active. So most of the time you get information that's more or less up to date. YouTube, you might get a version of the software from 10 years ago, and the video still looks nice, still looks clean, but the things that you're learning from it are not that useful anymore. So with YouTube, you just need to be wary of these topics. So in that sense, on-demand lessons like LinkedIn Learning or Khan Academy are better. There's also on-demand classes. So we have a full range of lessons that you can access, also either in order or not. You can get the whole class. And the Saley.org, which I showed you, also Coursera, you can get from the library. You can get edX. I think both Coursera and edX are free to look at the classes, but if you want to get some kind of certificate to prove that you've done it, then it costs money. Universal Class is a library resource that has, I don't know, hundreds of different random classes from skincare to Judaism to math, kind of for the lifelong learner who cannot escape being curious about literally everything. Universal Class is a good resource for you because there's no obligation. It's all free. You can dip in, dip out of whatever class that you want. And then of course, we've got the Open Textbook Library, which is just like a library of textbooks. Gale courses, which is another resource available from the library. These are classes that are, not on demand, and but there's a professor available. So the way that Gale courses works is you choose a topic of the class. There's a class catalog. You choose a class. The classes start at certain times and end at certain times, which is to say, they start on this date, they end this date. Between those dates, usually 6 weeks. The coursework is released twice a week. You have assignments that you need to do. The coursework you do on your own, it's mostly reading and exercises you do on your own, but there's a discussion forum where you can interact with the other students and the professor. And that's, I think, worth the price of admission, which is free. You can interact with a person who's an expert on the topic and ask questions about your assignment. So if you're having trouble with the assignment, you post in the chat. And the professors, I've taken multiple classes from Gale courses on anything from personal finance to creating content management systems, both technical classes and more conceptual classes. And all the classes I've taken through Gale courses, the professors have always been fantastic. They've always responded promptly to posts in the forum. And I think I've gotten as much from reading discussion forums as I have from the actual lessons. So I recommend it. And Duolingo, you might be familiar with. This is an app. It's a mobile phone app for learning languages, and it uses spaced repetition and other evidence-based techniques to help you learn. Now, of course, Duolingo, you do it 15 minutes a day. You're not going to become an expert in a language. It's fun and it's interesting, but you're going to do more than Duolingo. That said, if you're just interested in kind of maybe not the professional, but the lifelong learning aspect of learning a language, then Duolingo is fantastic. If you're interested in learning a language for work, then you're going to want to do Duolingo more than 15 minutes a day. And you're going to want to use other learning resources like audiobooks, like Mango Languages, which is free from the library, also a really nice language learning platform. You're going to want to maybe talk to people in language using a website like Conversation Exchange or other websites where you get to learn, you get to meet somebody from that language, from the who's a native speaker of that language. So again, like I said, there's different methods. So what I have here is on-demand lessons, on-demand classes, traditional classes. So this program is really about online learning resources, but there's also, of course, traditional classes. So depending on your self-assessment, the assessment of the skill, you might need to take a class at a community college, or if there's some kind of classes available in your community, either at a senior center or a community center or at a local adult school. You might need to take that traditional class if that's the way that you learn best. So there's some people who are very self-motivated and can do Sailor.org and take that class and focus on it and gain a skill. And some people who have trouble focusing, who have all kinds of stuff going on in their lives and may not be able to set aside the time unless they have to go to class twice a week. And that's fair. That's just something that you have to know for yourself. There's also boot camps. So boot camps, often used for learning technical skills, is a very condensed learning experience. So you might take what you would learn in an ordinary class in a semester, in some 10, 12, whatever weeks, and learn it in 2 weeks. And this is in case you have a certain urgency. You really want to learn something fast. And what that'll look like is you'll spend those 2 weeks completely engrossed in that topic. And you can create your own boot camp. So you can use any of these resources to create your own very condensed learning experience. If you have 2 weeks and you want to learn something, you can do that on your own. Or you can pay whatever, boot camps can range in cost. Some of them are not cheap. But if you need to learn, if you have a certain urgency, then that's something that is an option when it comes to learning. And of course, for those autodidacts among us who like to learn on their own, books are a great resource. And then there's nothing that replaces deliberate practice, where you're practicing, like you're practicing a musical instrument, and you consider exactly what you're doing, the mistakes that you're making, you focus on your mistakes, and you try to overcome them. Deliberate practice is everything. All right. Now let's get into practical tips. And then we'll get into Q&A and a bit more open-ended discussion where I can show you other things and we can talk amongst us. So practical tips to take you out of our presentation here. The first one is to study with a teacher, another learner, or a community. I don't have studies that demonstrate this, but I'm sure they're out there, that learning with other people, where you have to explain what you've learned to somebody else, where you discuss, where you just pace each other, is helpful. Sometimes, depending on your self-assessment and the topic, you may need to study with a teacher. For instance, when I was trying to learn a musical instrument, my tin ear would not let me learn by myself. I just couldn't hear what was happening in the YouTube videos or any other resource. So I had to study to play the ukulele with a teacher. There are other resources like that. If you're learning computer programming or, Microsoft Office, it may be worthwhile to get a teacher to help you through the various resources and, to create, kind of your own curriculum there, where the person can sit with you for an hour a week and answer your questions and show you things that supplement your own work. There's also a lot of online learning communities out there that are worth joining. Forums about learning almost anything, Facebook groups, discrete individual websites about, for particularly like things like programming. There are forums for almost every programming language, for Microsoft, apps. Browsing those forums, asking questions, becoming a participant in those forums is great to supplement learning. And, being able to ask questions to people who know is really, there's few things that are better than that for learning. Scheduling time. This is one of those very difficult things for busy people, but if you want to learn something, the best way to do it is not just like, oh, I'm going to do it whenever I have a moment. You really need to set yourself a schedule for when you're learning. So whether you wake up a little bit early in the morning and do something for 30 minutes, or in the evening, or during your lunch break at work, do something. You need to set aside a time when you're actually going to be doing this and plan ahead. So that way you can depend on, not in the whims of the day, oh, I don't feel like doing this right now. You've set this time and you're going to stick to that time. And that's going to help you get further in the learning process. Number 3 is push yourself. This is really important. We talked about fear earlier, and fear is a challenge. It makes you want to go, no, please, I don't want to. And it sometimes prevents you from pushing yourself. So if you're a runner, you might go slower because going faster is hard. But you're not going to improve your running time, your running speed, unless you push yourself. So you want to go a little bit faster than before, but not too much, because if you go too much, you're risking injury. You're going to burn out. You're going to overexert yourself and lose the motivation that you originally had. So it's really important to push yourself to learn. Your brain has to work. As I mentioned, the time and effort, the time plus effort equals learning. That effort part is really important. And that's what deliberate practice is about, is that you're not just mindlessly doing something. You're actually putting in the work. You're making your brain labor. It's really important for learning. Making your brain labor just enough where it feels like it's struggling, but not so much where it's struggling and you can't actually complete the activity that you're trying to complete. Number 4 is pressure test your skills. I mentioned exams earlier. Exams are really important for the learning process, not to make you nervous, but also a little bit to make you nervous. I mean, you want to put some pressure on yourself to be able to come up with whatever you're learning. So in a language learning environment, you can read all you want, you can kind of study the words all you want, but unless you are able to actually respond to somebody, it doesn't have to be perfect, but respond to somebody when they're talking to you, understand what they're saying, say something back, you haven't really learned the language. So there's that. Even if you're trying to use Microsoft, learning about Microsoft Excel, and you can't actually get into Excel and complete an activity, then you haven't learned the skill. So you need to be able to actually test yourself. And it's important. Finally, is cultivating a growth mindset. So growth mindset is what I'm going to end the presentation with today. So there's a book, it's a fantastic book, it's a classic in the field of learning, and that's The Mindset, the New Psychology of Success. Carol Dweck talks about two different types of mindsets. It's a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. And I'm going to read this quote verbatim here because it's really important. It's what I think about all the time in my own learning and then when I advise other people on their learning. Carol Dweck's growth mindset is based in our belief that our basic qualities are things you can cultivate through your efforts, strategies, and help from others. Although people may differ in every which way in their initial talents and aptitudes, interests, or temperaments, everyone can change and grow through application and experience. And that means that if you have this growth mindset, the skill that you have in mind in the job description that you saw for your dream job, you can learn that skill if you believe and you put in the time and effort. Thank you very much for listening. And now I am very happy to take questions and comments and demo anything else that you want to see. All right, so let me look at I'm looking at some of the chat and I'm going to look at the Q&A. And you can keep posting questions in the Q&A. You know, I'm going to try to take as many of the questions as I can. Let's see. How do these sites function? How are they able to function for free? That's a great question. So LinkedIn Learning is part of the LinkedIn social network. So they make money in a variety of ways. You know, they charge, first of all, LinkedIn Learning is not free for most people. Most people pay for LinkedIn Learning. It's something to the effect of $280 a year. It's free for us, you know, for you folks with your library cards because the library pays for. So you pay in about, you know, people pay property taxes. They go to the library pays for something like LinkedIn Learning and a whole bunch of other resources. So through the Commons, you're able to get LinkedIn Learning for free. Some of these other websites, like Sailor.org, it's a philanthropic act from a fairly rich person. So you know, they put up the courses, and you know, there's probably some staff that's paid for by this person as a philanthropic gesture. The Open Textbook Library is through university, so it's free because the university pays for it. Let me see. What are some suggestions for high school age students that are on the verge of dropping out? That's a great question. I don't know if I have any very good answers for that. I think that it depends on the reason that they're on the verge of dropping out. There could be so many reasons. But I think that you know, there are many ways to get to whatever goal that they have. And going to high school, you know, being in a school is one of them. You know, if depending on how advanced they are with their learning or how self-motivated they are to learn, they can also take the GED and, you know, get your diploma without completing the actual coursework at school. There's also independent learning centers, which also creates a different format that may be better. But again, yeah, I don't have a great answer for that. It's a fantastic question, but you know, that it's in some ways over my head in terms of my own knowledge. All right, so let's get to some of these questions in the Q&A. I'm going to go all the way to the top. Are we entering LinkedIn through a library page? Yes. So you go to lacountylibrary.org and you hover over digital learning right in the middle, and you go to LinkedIn Learning, and that'll give you a special splash page that is from the library, so that then you'll put in your library card information. Is there a limit on how many classes you can take? For LinkedIn Learning, there is no limit. For Gale courses, there is a limit. I think it's 6 a year, but I'm not really sure that there's some sort of limit for that one. For any of our for universal class, there's no limit, so you can get in, get out. You can do as many classes you want at the same time. For Open Textbook Library, that's not a library resource, but there's no limit. You can look at as many textbooks as you want. For Sailor, there's no limit. You can look at as many classes as you want. So most of these, there isn't a limit. The only limit is your time. Do any of these classes provide us with certificates of completion? So as I mentioned before, for Sailor.org, you can get a certificate of completion if you create an account. LinkedIn Learning gives you a certificate when you finish, and you can download it as a PDF. Some of the more kind of open-ended ones, like Open Textbook Library, that does not have a certificate of completion because there's no way for them to know that you finished it, since all you're doing is getting the book. And so if you know that you finished it, you know that you read it, but they don't know that. Aside from the cost, what's the difference between Teachable and LinkedIn Learning? I don't know because I have never used Teachable. I'm going to quickly go to it right now and I'm going to see if I can just at a glance see. Okay, see Teachable. There's probably not that much difference. I suspect that LinkedIn Learning has been around for longer, so they may have more classes. There may be a slightly different band. So LinkedIn Learning started as lynda.com, and I think it started with like photography classes. So LinkedIn Learning was initially a lot more sort of technical classes. So I don't know I'm going to see what Teachable has on. So online courses. I'm looking at their website right now. So Teachable is a lot more like Skillshare. It seems like, and we offer Skillshare from the library as well. But in terms of like the format of it, I think it's probably pretty similar. It seems like just videos that you can learn from. Where can I find the PIN of my card? So the personal identification number of your library card is something that you established when you first created your card. If you don't have it, if you don't know what it is, if you've forgotten it, that's fine. You can either go to your library, or you can call up your local LA County library and ask them for it. They'll probably verify your address or some other information on your card, and then they'll give you your PIN. It's a 4-digit code. Somebody mentioned that fear is a good motivator. Yes, absolutely. The key is to lean into your fear and not move away from it, because if you keep moving away from your fear, you're always going to be making routes around what you actually want to do but are afraid of. Could you please read how to get to open textbooks on the library? So the open textbook library isn't actually an LA County library resource. That's a resource that's hosted by the University of Minnesota, and there will be a link provided to that in the follow-up email. Somebody mentioned they especially like libraries BrainFuse. Yes, BrainFuse is one of our resources that gives you free resume review and resume editing. It's a really great resource. So you can go get to it in the same place that you got to LinkedIn Learning. You go to our website, lacountylibrary.org. You go to digital library, and the very first one I think is online learning. Click on that. With BrainFuse, I think is the second or third one. I highly recommend checking out BrainFuse for their variety of different resources, including free resume review. Are all these resources going to be sent to the email we provided? Yes, they are. They absolutely are. I do not expect you to remember all of these from just my saying them. They will absolutely be sent in a follow-up email. So I missed Mango Languages. Well, we have Mango Languages. You don't have to miss it. Mango Languages is available from the library website. How to learn computer basics resources do you recommend? It depends on how basic you want to go. So we've done with a library on our YouTube channel, we've had classes called like computers, the very basics. So that starts with like, what is a mouse? What is a keyboard? When you're looking at a computer, what are the different parts that you see? So if you need something at that level, then, watching a video like that may be helpful to you. There's also some other computer basics websites out there. Let me see if I can link you one, because I've some that are really nice. Or let me see here. I'm going to post a link in the chat right now. And this website has a lot of different things you can learn, but particularly it has a lot of good basic technology classes. Sorry about that. I had something stuck in my throat there. I'm going to actually make a note to, this is called the GCF Global. I'm going to make a note to include that in our follow-up email as well. I didn't talk about that during our presentation, but I've linked it before from other programs. So there's that. Yeah, that's computer basics. But you can also do like LinkedIn. I mean, if you're comfortable getting onto LinkedIn Learning has computer basics resources. Universal classes has computer basics, and Gale Courses has computer basics. So there's computer basics, to me, is a pretty wide range of possibilities, and there's sort of a lot of gradations when it comes to where you are when it comes to computer basics. So if you're able to get onto a Zoom webinar, then you're not a total beginner. I mean, you turn on your computer, you've gone through all the steps of getting into Zoom. I mean, you've checked your email, you've signed up for it. You've done pretty well up to this point. So you're not a total beginner. So in that case, there's some other routes to learn depending on where you want to improve. Do you know of any resource specifically geared toward older people who want to re-enter the job market, perhaps even finding a new type of work that isn't necessarily what they've done previously? So yes, there's a website called Workforce 50. I'm going to post it in the chat. That is specifically for folks that are older. I'm going to see if I can find the exact link here. There's that. Otherwise, in terms of like career exploration, the occupational career handbook is always good. There's the usual resources. The resources that are not related to age are also good for career exploration. But Workforce 50 is specifically a specific job site for folks who are older. I'm gonna put that link in the follow-up email as well. That's a good website. Let's see, can you talk a little bit about universities that offer free courses? I've heard something like the big ones, though maybe I heard wrong. No, you didn't hear wrong. So a lot of universities are offering what they call MOOCs, multi-online, multi-open online courses, MOOC, M-O-C-C. And these have been around for quite a while and are available from universities like Harvard and Stanford and all the Ivy League schools and many other universities. And they're essentially just classes that are put up for free online. And you can get those through edX, Coursera, and other places. Or you can just type in, online course or MOOC Harvard, and you can find the different courses that they're offering. There are various platforms that offer these courses, and they're free. And usually you have to pay for if you want to get the certificate of completion, but to actually access those courses, they're free. Some of them even have online forums where you can chat with other people who are doing the courses, and I feel like that's always a nice thing. Can you please mention some job search sites? Sure, but instead of doing that, I'm going to link our job help page. That way you can explore there's links on the right-hand side, and you can explore those links and determine which job site is best for you. But there's a whole bunch of job sites available. LinkedIn has a job board, Indeed.com, ZipRecruiter, etc. There's a whole bunch of them. There's even job sites specifically for certain types of careers. And if you want, for instance, nonprofit careers, idealist.org is specifically for nonprofit careers. I'm going to actually make a note to put that as well in the chat. In the follow-up email. That's a good one. How do we access forums? So when I mentioned forums, I was talking about accessing a community of people who are learning a specific topic. And so there are websites for people who are interested in learning topics, and it's essentially a Google search away. So you might type in, so if you're interested in learning about, now I mentioned computer programming as an example, but I can also maybe pick a different example. Like, I actually don't know if there's a lot of forums about like accounting. There's probably like groups of accountants, like a Facebook group of people who are accountants who talk about accounting stuff, and will generally be happy to help somebody who's a beginner. There's definitely librarian groups on Facebook and beyond, but forums is something that's It's just a website where there's a discussion group, and you would need to search for the topic that you're interested in, and you can even type in like whatever it is in forum or discussion group, and you'll probably find it. And if you're having trouble, email me. Just respond to the follow-up email with the type of skill that you're trying to learn, and I can help you search out forums that exist for that. What are the best skills to have today and is used in most jobs today? I don't know if I can, with any kind of credibility and confidence, tell you, the top 5 skills. I think that there are certain skills that have always been useful and that will probably continue to be useful. And those are, good oral and written communication skills, generally good communication skills, always helpful. Computer these days for many jobs, computer skills, and that's again a very general topic, depending on what you need to do for your job. Though, being able to use a computer and learn new software, that's always useful. And going on from that, to be able to learn new things, this is kind of almost a trick answer to this question, but in fact, this is something that if you read articles about, like the best skills to have, they'll tell you the best skill to have is the ability to learn other skills. Having a growth mindset, being able to see something, even when you're already in a job, and go, I want to know more about that, and then learn that, and all of a sudden you've leveled up, and you can maybe get promoted, you can look at a different career or get a different job somewhere else because you've learned something new. So it's giving you like one skill, like, oh, you need to learn Microsoft Excel. That's going to be good for some careers, but it's going to be useless for others. So I'm not going to do that. Learning to learn new skills is good. Are there music classes as well or Reiki classes available? I wouldn't be surprised if there are Reiki classes on Universal Class. I suspect there will probably be beginner Reiki classes. There are also, I'm sure, a lot of YouTube videos about how to do Reiki. Uh, Music classes are, yeah, abundant on YouTube. The thing about music classes is that that depending on how skilled you are with music, it's, someone like me, I can't learn music from, like by myself. At this now I can, but initially when I started, for the first few years that I was playing music, I needed to have a teacher. I needed to be part of a group where there was active feedback and an instructor to tell me whether what I was doing sounded like what it was supposed to sound like. But there are music classes online. There are music lessons online, both free and paid. So the answer generally is yes. Does the library have access to Google Learning? We don't have access to Google Learning, but I believe Google Learning is just free. I think anybody can have access to Google Learning. I don't think that you actually have to pay for it. Are there websites to avoid that present themselves as free but aren't? Not that I can think of. The only thing that you'd want to watch out for is if you are learning and you want a certificate at the end, you want to know whether that certificate is going to cost you money. Because sometimes, usually they're not being tricky. They'll tell you that the certificate will be this much money. But you want to avoid the websites where it's not clear how much it costs, but it's like, free to sign up. Okay, but then how is it free to use? Is it totally open? Those are the kind of, if the description of the pricing is vague, then that's something that you want to kind of stay away from or just be careful about. I went to my neighborhood AJCC and asked about the on-the-job training. They told me the money for the program has run out for the year. Is that true? If so, would going to another AJCC branch help? That's a good question, and I don't know the answer to that. I would recommend calling another AJCC branch before going there. AJCC is the American Job Center of California, for the folks who don't know, are one-stop shops for work training, job placement, and much more. I really recommend going to AJCCs. They have a bunch of great resources. But as this person mentioned, they have a variety of programs, and those programs have a certain amount of funding associated with them, and sometimes the funding runs out. So what I would recommend is just calling the various AJCCs and asking them whether the specific program that you were signing up for or that you were doing is still running. And if not, then if there's a program that's like it that you can use. There's also the possibility of doing so AJCCs is something the county, LA County does. There's also like work source centers, which is pretty much the same thing, but it's something that's funded by the city. So different counties and different cities have a sort of a patchwork of job development or career development resources, and specifically different kind of centers. This might call different things. So you might try if if you live in a city that's near another city that's like LA, LA City, then you might try some of the work source centers nearby if the AJCCs can't help. I'm working two jobs and would like info on how to fill in my W-4s. Well, that's a good question. I would recommend consulting an accountant. That's not something that I can help you with because I'm a mere librarian. What learning avenue would you learn how to teach beginning yoga, do you think? So with yoga, in order you would want to, if you're just trying to, gain a kind of an understanding if you're a practitioner and you want to learn kind of some basics, and then there are yoga classes out there, to learn to do yoga. Whether they're actually classes about how to teach yoga, that's a whole nother topic. That's where I was talking about, you can find a lot of beginner and intermediate content online, but once you get to the advanced content, that's where you start to get the paywalls. That's where you start to have to pay for it. And I think teaching yoga may be one of those things. So in order to teach yoga, you have to have a certain amount of hours of experience. You have to have, you have to gain that experience. And that's usually through programs that cost money. There may be resources on how to teach yoga available online. That would require a search. I would Google that initially, but I suspect that's something that if you want to get a certification to be a yoga teacher, that's something you'd probably want to pay for. How does one get a job with the library? It depends on the role that you want to fill. So there's some jobs like librarian that you need a master's of library and information science. And when we have openings, you just go to LA County Library, not well, you go to lacountylibrary.org and scroll all the way down to career opportunities. So you can do that. That's for librarian jobs. There are also other jobs available at the library. So I mentioned earlier, you can be a page. That's a person who shelves books. You can be a library associate. That's a person who sits at the desk and checks out the items. There's a library assistant who supervises the paraprofessional staff and does some of the other administrative tasks. Those three jobs don't require a master's degree. They don't actually even require a bachelor's degree. So those jobs are potentially available. For I believe library associate and library page, those are jobs you apply for at the library. So each individual library, you can ask them if they have openings. You can fill out an application on site. For library assistant and librarian and beyond, those are classes. I mean, those are ones that you would go to the LA County Library website for, or LA County Library website, and search there for openings, and then you can apply there. As a bilingual person, do you have any tips for a language learner? Yes. I mean, there's a lot of books about learning language that can give you many more tips than I can provide. But I would say practice speaking to people. Start speaking to people as soon as possible. That's probably the best. Having connections with other people that speak that language is probably useful. I'm a native speaker of Russian and essentially English because I came from Ukraine. So I spoke Russian with my parents growing up, so I didn't have to learn Russian. I just kind of knew it, and I was very little when I got here, so I learned English very fast. From what I've read about language learning, yeah, you want to, there's certain sort of shortcuts to gaining knowledge about language, learn frequency lists of words, using flashcards, spaced repetition, those kind of subject, but really talking, making your mind labor through taking calculated risk, by speaking to somebody, somebody friendly who speaks that language who can help you out. Do you happen to know anything about the ARPA program? ARPA stands for, as far as if this person is speaking the same ARPA program, it's the American Rescue Plan Act. It's money that the federal government gave during the pandemic that trickle down to various municipalities and consequently to other organizations like the LA County Library. So this program, the Work Ready, is funded by the American Rescue Plan Act. So I think I would need a more specific question, but yeah, the American Rescue Plan Act funded a whole bunch of stuff, in the library and beyond. So it's as far as I know, it's been helpful to many people. All right, and I have one more question here in the chat. And if you have any final questions, you throw them into the Q&A right now. Now is the time, because we only have a couple of minutes left in this program. So by your knowledge, do you know if they have tax classes like tax preparation or class? Gale courses might have a class on taxes. They're also, if you're interested in basic tax preparation, stuff for like individual, the IRS website has a lot of resources on how to fill out specific forms. They're not going to give you tax advice. They're just going to say this form is for this form is for this. This is what you would put in this area. But there's a lot of wiggle room when it comes to tax forms that somebody with experience like an accountant would know. So that's why, if you're getting into any level of complication, that's something that you'd want to talk to a professional about. But yeah, I would try Gale courses to see. I know they have accounting classes, like accounting basics. I don't know if there's classes on specifically how to fill out specific tax forms or on taxes in general, since information about that varies so much based on state and federal, and there's a lot of details when it comes to taxes. Let me see another question here. Do you have any cooking classes online? Oh, that's a great question. So we've had cooking classes at libraries, and I believe Get Set Up may have some cooking classes. So if you don't know what Get Set Up is a program that we offer through the library for free for older adults to get onto small Zoom sessions and just learn things. It's really cool. If I was, I don't know what their age rate, I think it's over 50 or something. If I was over 50, I would be on Get Set Up every day. I mean, I would love that. So if you are over 50, or I think 50 is limit, go to our website, go to the go to our online learning portal and check out Get Set Up. I believe they have cooking classes. And if not, there are, I think something like, I wouldn't be surprised if Universal Class had cooking classes, some specific cooking classes, but they're not video cooking classes. They're just they're mostly text. YouTube is really great for cooking. There's so whenever I'm looking into cooking, I see a recipe in a book or something, and I like the recipe, and I want to I've made it before. I want to learn other ways to make it. I just type in whatever I'm interested in on YouTube, and there's going to be like 50 videos about how to make the dish, unless it's really, really rare. Watching a few of those, you kind of get a general idea. And if you're already competent at cooking, you kind of get a general idea of what they do, and then you can do your own thing. So yeah, cooking classes on YouTube. It's good stuff. Are there any courses on personal finance, investing, and retirement planning? 100%. Yeah. On Gale courses. Yeah, I've taken personal finance and investing courses on Gale courses, and they're really good sort of entry levels into investing in personal finance. They'll cover all the things that you would get in an introduction to personal finance you get in the 6-week course, and you could ask questions in the discussion forum. Shout out for the terrific cookbook called Good and Cheap. Thank you for the suggestion. Good and Cheap is what the cookbook is called. I wonder if the library has it. Well, I'm going to look it up later. Hard to go wrong with Good and Cheap. All right, so I don't see any other questions in the Q&A. If anything comes up in the next minute or two, I'll cover that. I don't see any other questions in the chat. Oh, wait, I missed this one. Do you offer, or can we give Zumba classes? So the library doesn't currently offer Zumba classes, as far as I know. There might be Zumba classes on Get Set Up, and there might be Zumba videos on Hoopla. So Hoopla is our resource for, it's like we have Libby and we have Hoopla. Those are the primary audiobook and ebook, and there's moving pictures on Hoopla, so like movies and stuff. And I know they have yoga classes. I know they have other kind of, I think they have Pilates and stuff like that. And I wouldn't be surprised if Hoopla had Zumba as well. So I would check out Hoopla. It's hoopladigital.com, or you can click through from our website. Is it difficult to get a job when you're in your 30s? I would say that depends on the job, depends on your skills, and what experience, skill, disposition that you have, and then the job that you're applying for. So I wouldn't say that the 30s has anything to do with it. I wouldn't say that age is a factor in that case. I think it can be difficult to get a job no matter what age you are. What are the differences between Hoopla and Libby? That's a great question. So the biggest difference between Hoopla and Libby is more like a traditional library. So when you check something out, so we have a certain amount of copies of books, audiobooks, movies, magazines, etc. on Libby. And when somebody checks it out, that item is gone from the collection for 3 weeks or how much ever they take, just like in a real library. With Hoopla, it's much more of a digital platform where everything is always available. So no matter who checks out, X item, that item is still available for everybody else. So that collection, you always have access to the full collection. So those are the main differences. Otherwise, they both have mobile phone apps. They both offer books and audiobooks and music. Actually, music, Hoopla offers a little bit more stuff in terms like that. It's the mediums. It offers more media. Hoopla, yes, I mentioned Hoopla has a monthly limit. It does have a monthly limit. The monthly limit is pretty high. So I mean, I've never run into monthly limit. I use it fairly regularly. But if you're watching like TV show series, then you could run into that. Or if you're really, really fast, you can run into the Hoopla limit. And that's the other difference. So Hoopla, everything is always available, but there is a monthly limit on it. They look different, and that's the other thing. Are there audiobook reader apps the library works with besides Libby? I miss Overdrive so much. Libby skips around and loses its place too easy. It feels like a beta version or sometimes. I need to try Hoopla, but is there anything else? So there is Yeah, try Hoopla. I mean, Hoopla is pretty good. Are there any other? So for audiobooks, we don't have any other audiobooks, but if you're interested in audiobooks, there is the option of if you're around other library systems, the Palace app, many libraries use the Palace app, but that has audiobooks as well. And then there's also a LibriVox, and I'm going to put that name in. LibriVox is people, just the public, reading public domain and Creative Commons books. And so it's a pretty big collection. The quality of the audiobooks there vary because it's just members of the public. So there's some of them are really, really good and some of them are pretty bad. But you could always listen to the first few minutes and determine whether the sound quality is good enough or the reader's voice is irritating or not. But I use LibriVox every so often. Although I tend to find between Overdrive and Hoopla, or between Libby and Hoopla, and several different library systems, the greater LA area, there's so many library systems. I'm never at a loss for things to read, to be honest. All right. Well, thank you all for sticking around. Thank you for your excellent questions. I'm going to post a link to the post-event survey if you have a moment. Fill that out. I always appreciate it. Whether what you say is positive or constructive feedback, I just really appreciate getting the feedback. And if you have other topics for us to cover in the future, do let us know that as well. I see there's a couple of other questions. Oh, I see. Palace or Palace? I'll have to go like Palace Athena. No, it's Palace like with like what knights live in, kings and queens live in. I'm gonna go ahead and I'll post those in the Q&A. I'm gonna make a note to put information about LibriVox and the Palace app. Palace project it's not something that the county library, LA County Library, but other library systems offer it. Some library systems offer it as well. Palace project. All right. Once again, thank you everybody for being here, and I will see you next time.